to Good Morning Sri Lanka, and of course we're with Mr. Alan Sibinala, and we've been talking to him about World Population Day, which is today, and of course there's a focus on the youth, and that really is our conversation today. We spoke of previously about how Sri Lanka has invested in the youth in terms of free education, free healthcare and things like that, and you did want to talk about it a little lengthily, so let's touch on that subject as well.
I think it's absolutely critical that you look at a country like Sri Lanka and see what has happened when you invest in its healthcare system and in its education system, together with making sure that you have, I think, an equitable investment into women and young people. Now, what we've seen is that there are, in Sri Lanka, what I mentioned before, less mothers dying or women dying because they want to give life to a baby than anywhere in South Asia. I think it's very important to know that this whole notion about reproductive health, that women at quite an early age are aware of how their body functions, that there is a good solid understanding with their partner, whether it is the fiancé, the boyfriend or the husband, that you talk about how many children the family wants to have as a couple and at what spacing of years that should happen. These are things that are happening in Sri Lanka. There is good voluntary family planning programs. There's an extremely skilled workforce among the medical or the health system, and there is also a good response capacity that when a woman has any kind of danger signs during her pregnancy or during the last weeks of her pregnancy or even at childbirth, that the mom and the baby can be saved. That is something which is quite extraordinary for a middle-income country that has come out of 30 years of rather sensitive recent history. And that is important to understand that because you had the combination of these facts, you have these good indicators. You have right now a population, a young population that is well educated, that is quite literate, if not to say almost 100% literate, but that is also very healthy, and that knows that when it is in its adolescence, when your body and your mind starts to change, you know in confidence what you need to do and how you prepare yourself as a young lady or as a young boy to treat your other partner with respect and so forth and so forth. I think these are extremely positive, that's a very positive story or history of Sri Lanka. Now when it comes to education, what we've done in this publication is that we've really looked at some of the role models, some of the successful young people that have benefited from these investments that you see here. They have been able to be who they are, young leaders, entrepreneurs, successful cricketers, successful musicians, successful community activists, involved in environmental protection and so forth, because of that whole system of a good healthcare system, of good free education, but also of what we call this enabling environment, that you give young people the space and the place to express themselves, to participate in decision making, that you give the space for them to live their adolescence and their youth in the best possible way. And I just want to pause a minute here to commend the National Youth Services Council, the Federation of Youth Clubs, the National Youth Corps. These are structures that are giving young people the means and the ways to get engaged, to play sports, to organize tournaments, to do social work, and so forth. And I think all these factors lead to a successful young population, and in my view, a potential that the country has to maximize. And when I talk about potential, it's about that everyone has that leadership capacity, that entrepreneurship capacity in herself or in himself. Now, what do you do as a policymaker? What do you do as a country to optimize that? And that's why it's important to see the story, tell the story of investing in young people and how we should go on in terms of encouraging Sri Lanka to invest in young people, and also tell its story very confidently to the rest of the world.
Of course, and you've got this publication, as you call it, Generation Youth, yielding the returns on investment. They are the products
Yes.
of what you've been talking about,
Yes.
of the education, of the healthcare system
Yes.
that we've had. And on the cover, of course, for those of you who may not be able to see it that clearly, we've got Kumar Sangakkara, BNS, you've got Anoka. Anoka was on the show a couple of months ago, as I was mentioning before the show. Very charismatic, very she works very hard towards what she truly believes, and she's very, very young. So these are all people who over the years have built their way through. So we'll talk a little bit about them in just a bit, but we also need to take a very quick break right now. When we come back, we have more questions. We also need to talk a little bit about the perception of youth in Sri Lanka. Let's talk a little bit about how that works as well. All of that in just a while. Make sure you stay with us.